What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Games Up Podcast. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and hello to you from the past. You see, right now I'm on holiday, and in fact nobody at Games Up was able to record a fresh episode for this week because Lewis is obviously dealing with his master's exams, and Lawrence is still having scheduling stuff in Glasgow, so we recorded this in the past. Unfortunately, that means there's no news. Sorry if it is the news that you come here for. But what instead we're going to do is present a special version of our topic of the week for you. You see, this week I am off holidaying in Bonny, Scotland. And so I thought I would bring you to Scotland with me by taking you through 5 of the most important video games ever developed in Scotland. Number 5. Halo the Master Chief Collection. Alright, we'll get the slightly tenuous one out of the way first, but I do think this is a very important thing to mention. Halo the Master Chief Collection was a massive undertaking, and it was a massive undertaking for far more studios than just 343. 343 shipped parts of the game out to other studios who were responsible for building those parts of the game and then bringing it back into the final finished product so that 343 could focus on some of the bigger tasks like doing the Halo 2 anniversary work and bringing in the blur cutscenes. As a result of this, Ruffian Games, a Scottish game studio, were tasked with working on Halo 3 and Halo 4. The reason this is a bit of a tenuous link is because Halo 3 and Halo 4 were one of the least worked on parts of the game. Halo 1 had the anniversary update from the Xbox 360 days, Halo 2 obviously was given a massive coat of paint, but Halo 3 and Halo 4 stayed roughly similar. Now, I imagine there must have been a huge amount of work put in to making Halo 3 and 4 run on the Xbox One, but it's the kind of work that when it's done properly is hard to notice because it's been done properly. Unfortunately for the developer, the Halo Master Chief Collection was not incredibly well received. At the time, it was considered quite a broken game, and at the time, fans were left a little annoyed with the franchise for putting out a release that seemingly didn't work on day one. The reason I think this is a really important start to this list is that I consider the Halo Master Chief Collection to be a bit of a turning point in the gaming industry. Trends in the gaming industry up to this point have been shifting away from things like Day 1 DLC and online passes to more ongoing content and games as live services, and Halo the Master Chief Collection could well be considered one of the massive tipping points in pushing games to where they are now. It's very fair to say that games like Overwatch and The Division might not existed if it weren't for Halo the Master Chief Collection and games like it, treading that ground and seeing where the stumbling blocks were. If it weren't for them having their negative responses and having that shape the industry going forward. So Ruffian, a studio based in Dundee, are arguably partly responsible for a fairly big shift in recent years in the gaming industry. Number 4. Crackdown. That's right, the franchise that's going to be a massive Christmas release this year started in Scotland. It was developed by a developer called Real Time Worlds, who were also based in Dundee. In fact, Dundee is a location that's going to come up a lot in this list. And it was published, of course, by Microsoft. The studio was founded by David Jones, who was also the creator of some massive franchises that we'll get onto later in this list. Crackdown at the time of its release sold well and was well received, but the franchise slipped off a little bit, especially with the release of Crackdown 2. Since then, in the years following Crackdown 2, the franchise has gained a massive cult following within the Xbox community, which has led to the rise of a new version of Crackdown, which will be released this year and looks to be gaining quite some traction in terms of its popularity. Crackdown is arguably one of the best franchises in Xbox's wheelhouse, and we owe it all to a developer in Dundee. Number 3. Lemmings. A puzzle platformer that was released in 1991, at the time of its original release, Lemmings was one of the most popular games ever put to a console. In fact, it's racked up a number of accolades on a number of lists as one of the best gaming franchises ever released. At the time of its original release, it sold 55,000 copies on the first day, and that's pretty monumental for a game of its kind at that time. It was originally developed by a studio called DMA Design, who we now know by a different name, and the game was published by Psygnosis for the Amiga, Atari ST, and the PC. Lemmings has a heavy cult following and is still thought of as one of the best gaming franchises to this day. And to thank for it, we have to look at DMA Design, who made one of the most popular games of their time and set themselves a pedigree for doing so that they continue in later years. Number 2, Minecraft. Alright, I know what you're thinking. Minecraft wasn't developed in Scotland, and no, you would be right. Minecraft in its original form, the PC version, was not developed in Scotland. But one of the biggest reasons for Minecraft's growth is its console sales, and it's been reported a number of times that Minecraft sells better on the consoles than on any other platform. 4J Studios, a game company based in, you guessed it, Dundee, are responsible for those console ports. They're an independent game developer studio, and they're mainly based in Dundee, but they also have a studio in East Linton. And they are responsible for the development of all the console editions of Minecraft, including the recently released Nintendo Switch edition and the previously recently released PlayStation Vita edition. The company was founded in 2005 by Paddy Burns and Chris Vandercoyle. I'm sorry if I've said that wrong. And as well as working on the Minecraft ports, they have a long list of big name ports under their belt, including Perfect Dark, Banjo-Kazooie, and Tooie, and The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. They've also published Star Trek Conquest and Star Trek Encounters, which were their own original games. Minecraft reaches a huge audience every year, and one of the reasons for it is the accessibility of the game. The consoles arguably make it much more accessible to a much younger fan base, and 4J Studios deserve massive respect for the way that they've developed the game, the way that they've kept the spirit of Minecraft alive on a different platform, and the way that they've allowed a brand new audience to access what will frankly be considered a modern masterpiece. And number 1, Grand Theft Auto. What more can you say about Grand Theft Auto than its name alone? The brand carries huge amounts of respect and even bigger sales and critical response. But GTA started from humble beginnings up in Scotland. You may remember the company DMA, who made Lemmings. Well, they changed themselves to be the newly formed Rockstar Games, and it was under this new moniker that Grand Theft Auto was made. Rockstar Games then became Rockstar North as the company expanded and has continued to do so, and the company took on many other projects, including Red Dead Redemption and the Max Payne franchise, as well as publishing games like LA Noire. In the year of its release, GTA 5 was one of the biggest media properties in the world. In just 3 days of its release, the game had surpassed $1 billion in sales, making it not just the fastest video game sales of all time, but the fastest selling media product in history. And 6 weeks after its initial release, the game had shipped nearly 29 million copies. To put that into perspective, GTA 5 managed to do in 6 weeks what Skyrim has done in its entire life. The GTA franchise is undeniably one of the biggest behemoths in the entire gaming industry. It continues to see massive support from its player base and is constantly taking the top spot in headlines in gaming news around the world. It's one of the most well-known and well-respected media franchises of all time, and it will undeniably go down in history as a franchise not only to be respected, but to be marked for a serious turning point for video games and the video game industry. That, ladies and gentlemen, was our topic of the week, our list. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned maybe a little thing or two about some of the wonderful things that have come out of Scotland and the wonderful way it continues to give to the video games industry. I want to give a quick shout out here to a game company that we interviewed a few years ago at the very first EGX we ever covered. Junkfish Games, who are making Monstrum, a VR horror game, were one of the first interviews that we ever conducted in our EGX Indie interviews. They were incredibly lovely, and they told me about how they had studied at university and are now based in, you guessed it, Dundee. And I have a huge amount of respect for the studio, and it was really lovely talking to them the first time we did. So as of yet, I couldn't put them on the most important game developers in Scotland list, but I have no reason to believe that I won't in the future. And so if you haven't seen their stuff, check them out, because they were really, really good to us, and their game looked great when I watched Lewis get freaked out playing it on the show floor. It was wonderful. Anyway, that was our list. Thank you very much for joining us. It will be back to regular service next week. Probably, I mean, as regular as any of our services are. But until then, thank you very much for joining us. Feel free to subscribe to the show on YouTube or iTunes. It's 6:30 every Monday on YouTube and earlier that day on iTunes, so you can catch it on the way to work. Like us on our Facebook page. It's at Games Upcast on both Facebook and Twitter. And we'll see you next week. Until then, aye, and the game's up.